Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to this view replay courtesy of Stabbing Time here in the Churchill Mk.VII, which is not the most popular tank in the world, and that's because it's not particularly good. It's alright when it's top tier, but when it's not top tier, the armor's not worth a lot, it's slow, it's actually slower than the tier 5 Churchill, and the guns are barely an upgrade. It can, however, mount this gun. It's not a common sight, but this is the 3.7 inch howitzer. So usually when one talks about a tier 6 heavy tank with a derp gun, you imagine either the KV2 or the OI. There's also this option, but there's a reason why you don't see people using this option very often, and I don't think Stabbing Time himself is doing it for anything other than the novelty value, because it's a pretty terrible howitzer. It's not as bad as the British 3-inch howitzer, which is what gets mounted on, I think, is it the Matilda? Yes, the Matilda gets the 3-inch. I think the Churchill VII can mount the 3-inch howitzer, and that's really bad. You never see anybody using that because it's a really terrible gun. This is marginally less terrible, but it's still fairly terrible. It's actually a 94mm gun, so it's even less powerful than the 105mm howitzers that you find on some of the mid-tier German and American tanks. Heck, even the French get a mid-tier howitzer now. So yeah, it's pretty terrible. And when you've got this particular matchmaking, and this is 919.1, so this is 357. There are plenty of tier 6s and 7s for him to shoot at, but you know, the 7s and 8s, even the tier 6s, you know, this gun's not going to be very effective, and he's not even packing any heat ammo, so it's just pure HE, and the HE penetration is terrible, and because it's not a very big shell, it doesn't particularly have a big splash. So why am I showing you this replay? Well, there has to be a reason, right? We'll get to it. It's just, it might take a while to get to that part, and that's kind of appropriate because it's the Churchill VII. The Churchill VII is not very fast. So his first potential victim is that extremely low health T-34-85. Low enough health that he might actually get the kill. He's obviously decided not to go maybe to his initial position of up in A0, that kind of area. I think that's where he was thinking of going to, but he was just too slow, and of course the Panther spotted him, so rather than go out in the open, get shot a bunch by the Panther 2, in fact he's already been shot once by the Panther 2, decides to reposition, and there we go. So he's in a better position-ish, but it's still not a great position. There's not a huge amount you can potentially hit from here without them sort of coming to him, and there's actually a danger that he might get caught by tanks coming from either side, because there's a bunch of enemy tanks on the low ground there, and then we know there's some enemy tanks to his north with only that Rio left alive, and his team's rapidly dying around him, and he's only got this piddly little 94mm howitzer. So we got a whopping 65 damage. So at this point, yeah, that's bad news. A WZ-111 turns up, and although he could survive the hit, you know, you wouldn't really want to take that hit because it's 390 average damage, so it would take off over half his remaining hit points, and maybe there's a slight chance it would bounce, but probably not. Even the WZ-111, just, you know, assuming they're firing AP with its 175 average pen, there's still a very good chance it would pen because it's not good armor on this tank, particularly not when you're bottom tier. So at this point, he has a brainwave with the engine deck. Well, he's not doing a huge amount of damage, but he has set a fire, and maybe this guy's running food, or maybe he just hasn't noticed he's on fire, but either way, it takes them an awfully long time to extinguish that fire. In fact, well, no, they couldn't be running food because they then did extinguish the fire, so none of those, I think, was a penetrating hit, but the one that set the fire did do quite a lot of damage. And between that and the other hits, he was able to finish off that WZ. He wasn't the only person that hit the WZ, but he, I think, probably did the lion's share there. So now he's got the broadside of T-29, there's also an ARL up there, and the ARL's actually got soft enough armour that the shells might be effective. The T-29 fortunately was just completely ignoring him because, hey, it's a Churchill VII with a derp gun, it's not dangerous, right? And it's not like he did a great deal of damage to that T-29, so maybe his estimation wasn't so far off. So instead of coming up behind him, the Type 64 and the 3485M are going on the 9-0 line instead. So that leaves Stabbing Time able to give some assistance to this Super Pershing, who's got very good armour, but not particularly good mobility either. And oh, hello, there's the ARL, who has the 90mm, and it actually bounces. And I think that's the first shot he's taken that's not done damage. Now, the ARL not being particularly high health, you know, it still took 2 hits. A heat shell probably would have done it in 1, but he's finished off. And this Cromwell's very low health as well, but good luck hitting a non-stationary Cromwell with this gun. Of course, if the Cromwell's going to sit stationary, that will make it easier, but as it turns out, it's the Super Pershing that sneaks the kill. So the T-43, meanwhile, has been all the way back there while all this has been going on. I mean, if anybody is the hero of this story, honestly, it's kind of the Super Pershing, but, you know, Stabbing Time is going to have ended up doing more than you would have thought possible with a derp gun under these circumstances as well. But this is, I mean, this entire replay is a novelty. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. A lot of what happens is down to a combination of his teammates, some of his teammates doing fairly well, and some of the enemy team not doing that well. I mean, that T-43 hanging all the way back there, for instance. It's not like the enemy team rushed these guys all at once. No, they came in at in small enough numbers at any given moment to actually give them a fighting chance. Now, the Super Pershing has just taken a big hit from the Udes, which is not great news particularly. And Stabbing Time, well, he's decided rather than try and make his way up to the ridge, which is what I would have done, to be honest, but maybe he just decided that the Churchill VII is slow enough that it would be better to try and get towards the Super Pershing, assuming that they'd try and rush the Super Pershing. But actually what happened was the Udes managed to snipe him. Now the 1375 has at least put 1 hit into the Udes, but it's 1375, so it wasn't exactly a lot of damage, but still, any less bit of damage that Stabbing Time has to do himself, considering how wholly unreliable this gun is a good thing. So it's now just down to him in the 1375 versus the Udes, which is very dangerous but thinly armoured. So we'll see what comes of that. And the T-3485M. As you can see, the 1375 hasn't got a lot of health left, but very good view range. If you're wondering about the background music, by the way, I usually have that turned off, but not this time. Yes, I forgot. I mean, there's a reason for it. It's because with the supporter spotlight video that I did earlier, and that having replays from different versions of the game, when you play the replays from different versions of the game, it has a tendency to muck up your settings file, because Warships has a separate settings file actually in the client folder, but World of Tanks has like a global settings file where it saves all of your preferences. And so if the options change between different versions of the game, it can mean that you have to go and reset the preferences to what you want them to be every time. And in this case, I did remember to reset the reticle, but I didn't remember to check the sound settings. So yes, that was all very long-winded, but also a very good way of filling time, because this tank took a while to get to where it was going. So he's trying some just snapshots really, and one of them actually gets lucky. He's starting to run a little low on health though, not health, ammo. One of those things. It's down to 16 shells, and he's, you know, started this game with, what was it, 50? So he's fired quite a lot of ammo for not that much damage overall. But 1700, nearly 1800 is actually not bad considering the nature of this gun. Now, for some reason, that T-3485M is firing HE himself. Possibly they are out of AP shells, but for whatever reason, You know, that's good news for stabbing time. However, what's bad news is this guy is obviously keeping him auto-spotted, or was keeping him auto-spotted for the Udes, who might have been sniping from afar, but as it turns out, does this. And I think that's the one and only penetrating HE shot that stabbing time has in the entire game. Now he gets another one into the rear armour, but that one doesn't pen. And although he's taken a big chunk of the Udes' health off, this guy has a nasty gun. And he can't afford to be complacent. And he really can't count on getting another penetrating hit. Fortunately, the 1375 gets in one hit, and there he is again. There's the 3485M. So this is a bit of a tricky situation, but not as tricky as it could have been. I was assuming that the 3485M would be spotting for the Udes. The Udes would maybe set himself up from a different direction to make use of that spotting, and instead he just came absolutely streaming in like a wrecking ball, drove past, didn't even try and shoot stabbing time on the way past, although I don't suppose you would think that was a particularly reliable thing to do with a Swedish tank destroyer. But it has completely changed the complexion of things, because if that had happened, if they'd paid the patient slow game with a 3485M spotting for the Udes, this might have been a very different result. And instead, the most dangerous tank is now just completely out of the way and dealt with. Now, unfortunately, the 1375 died to the 3485M, and now that just leaves two HE throwing tanks against each other. At least we assume the 3485M's only got HE left. I mean, why else would he have been firing HE up until this point if he had AP? Who knows? So we just have to assume he's only got HE left, which is actually pretty good news for stabbing time, because that gun is definitely capable of penetrating this armour. However, it turns out, no, he has an AP shell left. At least one. Why he waited until now to use it, I can't tell you. Maybe the HE was loaded for the 1375, but either way, here we are. It all comes down to this, and the guy gets pretty lucky with that final shot, to be honest. 105mm derp probably would have done the job there, but this is not that good. So it's going to take one more shot, and we shall see. Now, he's actually blocked another AP shell there. He could have survived the hit, but still doesn't want to take too many chances, and another final HE shell into the tracks, but his own finds its mark, and there we are. An ace mastery with 2800 damage done, all in a tier 8 game, and it's going to turn out that, well, not only did he get the top gun with the 6 kills, but also he got by far the best score of anybody, because he was bottom tier, and he also had the best damage on the team with that really terrible derp gun. Now, as I said, you know, some of his other teammates were doing alright. He had the AC-48 with 2000 damage, the Super Pershing, as I said, did very well for himself, so it wouldn't have been possible without those people. And then that Udes at the end doing what they did, just streaming past and giving him that one penetrating hit into the rear armour. Yeah, that was a stroke of luck. There's no denying it, and that Udes could have made life so much more difficult if him and the T-3485M had worked together effectively at the end there. They could have won that, and you would expect that they would win that against a derp Churchill VII, but as it turned out, no. So I did tell you this one was a bit of a novelty, didn't I? So, yeah, this was a very silly match, all in all, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did, because when I saw this the first time, I mean, it started out fairly slow, but it got pretty entertaining towards the end, I thought. So, anyway, if you did enjoy it, you can hit that like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and, as always, stay tuned for more.